Okay. All right, we'll call this meeting to order then of the Public Works Committee on June 14th. We have a quorum, albeit a bare quorum, but we have a quorum. And our first item of business is the minutes of our May 24th meeting. But before we get to that, Sean, I was going to ask you one question, if I could. Do you know what the status of Dan's appointment is? Is he going to continue on the committee in the interim until a new appointment is made, or?
Well, when we asked him last time, and thanks for doing that, he did indicate that he'd be willing to stick around maybe for a bit longer, including tonight, but then he remembered he was not going to be on vacation this week,
Okay.
so he's out of town. So I don't mind including him on the next one just in case he's available, but I think he backed up on purpose for family reasons, and it technically is a vacancy.
Okay. All right. We have minutes of May 24th.
This is Susan, move approval.
We have a motion to approve those minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, motion has been made and seconded to approve the minutes of May 24th. Is there discussion with respect to the minutes? Hearing none, those in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The minutes of May 24th are approved. Sean, I have another question here for you before we get to these next items.
Sure.
All of these kind of organizational items, election of a vice chair and appointments to various other city committees, and whether or not we want to proceed with doing meetings on Zoom or do them in person, seem to me anyway, as one individual, to be better decided by a bigger group than what we have here. I mean, we're missing almost half the committee.
Sure.
And I think all of the incumbents that are on those various committees are here this evening, but I have no idea if any of the other two or three would be interested in any of those positions or not. So I guess I just wonder what other committee members think. Do you want to go ahead and do these things in the absence of three members, or do you think it sounds like a good idea to defer them to our next meeting?
I think one of the issues will be that other committees, including those to which we're recommending members, will want to elect their own officers. So the longer we're behind on that curve puts them behind on that
Anybody
curve.
else behind?
Yeah.
Did you hear, Sean, from anybody expressing interest in any of these various positions?
I did hear only from Carl, who mentioned that if Don wasn't interested in re-upping with the Stormwater Utility Board, that he would do that. But I didn't hear anything at all from Carrie.
Okay. Well, are we comfortable going ahead then, everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Then ahead we will go. Appointment or the election of a vice chair. That's Don at the moment. Don, are you willing to continue to serve in that capacity?
Sure. No problem.
This is Susan, I nominate Don.
This is Robert. I second the nomination.
All right. Well, any other nominations? There isn't anybody left to nominate anybody. Hearing none, those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and Don will continue to be our vice chair. Conservancy Lands Committee member.
And Sean, just remind me, did I even need to make a second on a nomination, or nominations really don't need a second, do they?
They don't
They don't-
need a second.
They don't really, no.
Okay. Well, Don, I really like you, and I seconded you anyway.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
All right, that's fine. I serve on the Public Works or on the CLC now. And just so I understand this, Sean, all of these seem to have a slightly different procedure for getting somebody from one committee to the next. It looks to me like this one is a seat that the chair has or a member that the committee or that the chair appoints. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep.
All right.
So it's kind of yours for the taking if you want it.
And I'm willing to appoint myself for another re-up on the CLC.
All right. So if you
Okay.
volunteered, I'll make a note of that.
All right.
And we don't even have to vote on it.
All right. Now this one has another slightly different wrinkle also. Pedestrian, Bicycle and Transit Committee is designated by the chair of the Public Works Committee or other Public Works Committee designated by the Public Works Committee.
Yeah, so this one's a little different. This isn't either you or someone you appoint. This is either you or someone that the committee appoints.
Okay. Susan holds that position currently.
Yes, and I'm willing to continue.
Does anybody else have any interest in that position? And do we need to nominate her?
This is Robert. I would make, make a motion to nominate Susan West. Or
All
I
right,
would
we have a
nominate
motion to
Susan West, I
nominate
guess.
Susan West. We don't need a second for it. Any discussion on the motion? None. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Susan, you can continue to serve in that capacity. And finally, item 5, member to the Stormwater Utility Board. Don currently has that seat. And this is one that requires committee action as well, as I read it. Correct?
Yeah, this is not the chair or designee. This
Right.
is to be recommended
Committee.
by the committee.
Okay.
I will nominate Don.
Don, are you willing to continue to do it?
Yes, I actually, that's an enjoyable committee to be on. And they're doing some major construction, so it's good to have. I feel like I can actually support the committee in that regard.
Okay. All right, so we have a nomination for Don for that committee. We don't need a second. Any discussion with respect to the nomination? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and Don, you've won another hard-fought election. 2 tonight.
It was a close call.
Yeah.
Considering it meets Wednesday, it's a good thing we've got a nominee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, item 6, preference for return to in-person meetings or continued remote meetings.
And this we could defer if you'd rather to the next meeting.
I
Obviously,
suggest
by
we
default.
defer.
By default, we would meet via Zoom
Okay.
for the deferral, but that's okay.
Yeah,
I think we should have input from everyone.
I tend to
Actually, that
agree.
may be, oh, sorry, Robert. I was just going to throw in, that may be preferable anyway, because at the next meeting, tentatively, we want to have public input on the Middleton Beach Road concepts, some of the preliminary design alternatives to discuss, and we might get better participation online than we would in conference room B.
Yes.
Sure.
Okay.
I'm fully supportive of deferring this till we have a larger body to make the determination. Plus, as Sean says, the next meeting sounds like it might actually adversely affect public participation if we change it right before that meeting. So, Susan, did you make a motion?
I
Deferral?
would make a motion that we defer until the next meeting to discuss this item.
I'd second the motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second to defer this item until our next meeting. Is there discussion on the motion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we'll deal with this one next time. Item 7 is Middleton Springs Drive reconstruction.
Right. So you saw the excerpts from the proposals. Now, I've been taking out extra pages that have been provided to us by consultants. I don't know if you're interested in reading all the personal resumes and that sort of thing. So I've been trying to narrow things down just a little bit. If you'd prefer the full proposal, that'd be easy enough for me too to provide. I was just trying to get rid of some pages I thought might be a bit extraneous for the full committee.
Sure. I mean, I thought it was enough information to make a decision. So I'm fine with what you provided. And I would, oh, go ahead.
I am too, especially since these are all kind of known quantities that we're dealing with here.
Yeah, that's one of the things we do is only send out requests to firms we know are going to do a good job. And that makes things a little bit easier for everybody. I thought the MSA proposal was provided in somewhat more detail than the other two, but it wasn't enough for me to overcome the price difference in recommendation.
Right. And yeah, price was kind of a big thing for me. So unless somebody saw something that I didn't see about, like, you get a lot less for the price, I would make a motion to recommend to the Finance Committee and the Common Council to enter into an agreement with SEH.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
This is Susan, I'll second.
All right, and I assume, Robert, it's the agreement with SEH for an amount not to exceed
No.
$27,596.66.
Yeah, I would accept that friendly amendment to not to exceed that number.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there discussion with respect to the motion? Is there anything, Sean, you wanted to add about this project? It all seems to be pretty straightforward. No water main or sewer construction or.
I think most of the project will be straightforward. I think the really tricky part is going to be access to businesses.
Yeah. It's pretty congested. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the motion is carried, and that will be our recommendation to the Finance Committee and the Council. Item 8, holding stop signs and traffic signals.
Yeah, I don't know if what I wrote made a lot of sense. This all kind of started because the police department said, boy, it seems like you're missing some folding stop signs on a few approaches to traffic signals. And the more I looked into it, the worse it got. Where the MUTCD says, boy, unless your traffic signals come back to life in flash mode and stay that way, you're going to get yourself in trouble because conceivably you've got a green light with a red stop sign and you'll be out confusing people, and don't do that. But the state says, no, that's all right. People are smart enough to know the difference, that traffic signals take precedence over signs, and don't worry about it. Now, this is paraphrasing. It's not how the law is written.
This is Robert. I would recommend, well, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. Yeah, I would make a motion to support Middleton's continued use of the kind of the folding stop signs where they already are, not really change it. I will have a couple of questions, but I'll wait until the discussion period of this.
All right, let's see. We have a motion. Is there a second to Robert's motion?
And I would clarify, this would be just on those approaches then that operate in emergency red flash, not in yellow flash.
Which is our current placement of these folding stop signs, correct? That's
Right.
Yeah. So however you want to, that was my motion, but if you want to reword it to make it more clear, I'm fine with that as well.
Okay.
Is there a second to Robert's motion?
I'll second it, Don.
Don, okay. Discussion.
Yeah. Hey, Sean, so how does this work? First of all, what triggers opening these folding stop signs? Is it somebody driving from place to place to place and physically opening them up? Is there a little actuator that if the power goes out, no, somebody has to physically
Yeah, so
basically turn on these stop signs by manually opening them up.
exactly. Yeah, so normally when there's a power outage or a vehicle drives into one of our controllers and flattens it, and the signal goes dark, number one, there's a law that says motorists need to stop when approaching a dark signal.
Sure.
Just as sort of a safety default. But then the police, while performing traffic control, will fold these open and leave them that way. So
Right.
that anything that flashes yellow, like University Avenue, Century Avenue, just sort of proceeds with caution, or sort of a stop and go while the power's out, technically. But then side streets have to come to a full stop because there's a sign out. The downside is the police won't be there when the power comes back on because nobody knows when that's going to happen.
Right.
Or at least it's rare. So for a while, they're going to be operating with some folding stop signs displayed before somebody figures out like, hey, we should fold those back up.
So Sean, at an intersection with 4 stoplights, one on each corner, these don't have anything to do with overhead signals, I assume.
They do have to do with signals.
There's something to fold out on an overhead signal?
Oh, not on the overhead trombone arm. No, no,
Okay.
just on the pole.
On the pole. And there's what, one from each direction on the poles?
There can be. So it depends how the traffic signal is programmed to operate. Sometimes there's a flashing red, sometimes there's a flashing yellow.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it would have a flashing yellow, we don't want to put a folding stop sign on it. But if it would have a flashing red, we do.
But if it has a flashing yellow or a flashing red, or if the power's out entirely, it doesn't have a flashing anything, right?
Right. So then for, say, the main line, that would come back with a flashing yellow or would have gone into flashing yellow if there were a conflict monitor problem with the thing.
So these things
Then
are
we would-
folded up and just physically behind the traffic signal pole?
Well, they're in front of, but yes, they're
Front of.
physically folded. They're on hinges with a little bit of a latch.
Okay,
So they're cut in half and then put on hinges so
Okay.
that the police physically have to undo a latch and open them.
all right.
And then they just sort of stay there. So basically on major roads, just the side streets would stop.
Yeah,
And the
okay.
major road would just sort of go through.
All right, I understand it. Any other questions from committee members? Hearing none, all of those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the motion is carried.
Awesome.
That brings us to, I believe, the end of our agenda.
Oh, want to go back to Sean's and everyone's comment on not having in-person meetings. He mentioned that like Mendota Drive may be up for, public input based on preliminary designs. And then typically, as we go through that, even through the public hearing, people see the plans or outlines or whatever on their screens. Very small scale, as opposed to an in-person meeting where it would be on a much larger screen, either in council chambers or, better yet, in the little room we're at, although I don't think this public hearing would work well in that little room. Is there anybody here besides me that gets a little concerned about people looking at postage stamp plans and making comments when they really don't understand what they're looking at?
I do, but
It's a good
I
point.
think people who are really interested can pull them up, assuming they have computer access, which we're kind of talking about here with Zoom meetings anyway. They can also pull them up from the packet and kind of zoom in on things as opposed to what's just displayed during the Zoom meeting. But sure, I do think long term, I think there's a benefit to having in-person meetings, but I see a little bit of a benefit the other way too, right? And I know the Common Council has even said if there are ways to have hybrid meetings for those who want to come in physically, that would be an option. And for those who want to sit at home and look at it on a computer, that's an option. But generally, I think coming into the building has a little bit more of a option to interact, to see things the way we're seeing them. And I think there's a lot of benefits to an in-person meeting in my mind.
Well, personally, I don't mind the Zoom meetings at all for the kind of business agenda that we had this evening. I think that works very well. I don't particularly care to do the public hearings via Zoom because you're never really sure who's there, for one thing. People come in and go out and you're not sure who's there. You're not sure who they are. And I just would much rather see the public hearing portion of our agendas done in person. And I mean, that makes people invest a little bit more too, I guess. If they want to come and comment, then they have to come and comment and can't just, be on the computer for a few minutes and then off and go away and then come back later and what have you. So this is not, though, for next week going to be a public hearing, correct, Sean? This would just be some
No. Yeah,
preliminary.
this is input. So what we've asked of the consultant is to just walk through some of the major design elements that'll drive design and present a couple options, talk about them, get input, and figure out what they should or shouldn't include in design.
Okay.
Okay, then, yeah, I think we should stay on Zoom. I would suggest for a while, if we have to do public hearings, that we do them in council chambers, just so we're not crowded together in a small room in a building with out-of-date air exchange.
For
Because there
hearings, we pretty
still are
much
some
have to.
risks.
Yeah, for
But
hearings,
Sean-
the
I think
council
we've done it
chambers is
anyway,
the,
Susan.
Pardon?
oh, sorry, Don.
I didn't hear you.
We've done that for larger meetings anyway, having it in council chambers,
Yeah.
any public
Yeah,
hearing.
I think we should do it in council chambers where there's more room.
Okay, I just wanted to voice my opinion, that's all. So,
Yeah, I think that's a really good point.
All right. I should.
and then I can move, we adjourn.
All right. We have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second,
All right. A motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we stand adjourned. Sean, FYI, and Don, FYI for you too, I may not be at the next meeting. We're going to be.
Hey, wait a minute.
No, you signed up. You signed up knowing what was on that agenda.
So Bob, you've done that to me now. This would be the second time?
Well, I'm not doing it intentionally, believe me. But we're
Sure.
planning some vacation and we're going to be gone. We're going to be over in Michigan and I may be home for the next one and I may not. But if I'm not, I'm leaving it in good, capable hands. I know that.
Great. Okay.
Good to know.
You can get the step-up pay that you deserve for moving from vice chair to chair for that meeting.
Nice. Well, wonderful. Everybody have a good evening.
All right, thank you all.
Okay.
And I'll see you maybe next time. And